Today's episode is brought to you by the Restless Patreon subscribers. Matt and I might not be the best at marketing all the time, but we love making content. And if you want more of what you hear on the Restless podcast, you can find it at patreon.com/the Restless podcast. We have 3 tiers, and even at the entry level, you will get weekly bonus content that's only available for Patreon members. Matt and I wanted to make it possible for everyone who listens to get a chance at this extra content. So subscriptions start at only $3 a month. We wanted to make it lower, but we found out that the extra fee for a lower price would have made it cost even more. So we picked the lowest number really that we could. With your subscription, you also get access to the Restless Resurgence, our Telegram group, where we carry on conversation throughout the day. If you've been wanting more Restless, this is where you get it. Once again, go to patreon.com/the Restless podcast.
This is Restless. Welcome back to Restless, a post-mortem on the young, restless, and reformed. I am your host, Matt. I am joined by Pastor Michael and his son, Warren. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing well. Back baby casting. So if you listen to this episode and you hear a really noisy baby in the background who just loves to grunt and moan and make lots of weird, loud noises all the time, that's what's happening. That's actually exactly what you're hearing. Your ears do not deceive you.
Well, it's great that we have Warren with us because it kind of just shows how wholesome and sincere and good faith and winsome and family friendly and positive and constructive we are as a podcast.
That's what we are, actually. I think all of those things are things that I've seen in reviews about our show. Speaking of which, if you go and you review the show and you let us know that you reviewed the show on any podcast catcher, on Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you listen to us, if you do that and then you email us and tell us, we'll send you a sticker. And once a month, we're going to pick somebody to win a book. So,
and I'm going to pick someone right now. I'm going to read a review. And it has to be a 5-star, by the way. Like as fun as it would be to give one of these away to a 1-star, we're going to give one of these books away right now. I'm going to read a review. Also, we released some bonus content last week where I, at the end, announced the next 2 people who join us on Patreon will be getting a free copy of the book. As of this recording, one of those books have been claimed by our newest patron, Matt, which we're excited to have you on board. We'll get you this book in the mail. And we're also giving a book away from a book to whoever wrote this review called Rye _C89. So Rye _C89. If this is you, you need to message us on Twitter or email us, and we will mail you one of these books. And so here is his 5-star review. It's titled, Pastor Michael, New Favorite Show.
Awesome. Love it.
This show is what I've been looking for. Normal dudes that I feel like I could hang out with and talk theology over coffee or a beer or both. We'd spend all day together. Rye. We would go out in the morning and then we'd spend the evening together. As a former UMC member who is now planning to join my local PCA church, I find this show to be incredibly edifying, which is a great review to go to our next topic on. Because as you know, we are edifying and we do this show in good faith. Everything we cover in the height of sincerity and candor and winsome and heartfelt. Which brings us to tonight's topic, the good faith debates, Pastor Michael.
Here we go. These are going to be good.
So
and faith.
And yeah, no doubt. And so our listeners are no doubt aware of the good faith debates. So the good faith debates, in case you're wondering, listeners, we're still working out how we're going to do this. But as soon as we finish the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill episodes, we are going to begin reviewing the good faith debates. Now, will we do this on a long live stream and just watch them together? Maybe. Will we play clips? Maybe. We don't know. If you have ideas and thoughts about how we should go about these, we are interested in your feedback.
Here's my thought, by the way, as you just said that, because it's I know we've talked about covering it, but I haven't thought through exactly how we would do it. I think we should watch it, like live stream, watch it together, maybe even invite patrons to join us and we just discuss it. And then afterward, we could do a recap episode where we talk through it and talk what we thought about it, maybe add a couple of clips. But I think that'd be fun.
Great. Well, everybody, it sounds like these 5 debates are going to be very good faith, and they're going to be great events for Restless. So look forward to late this summer after I move my house or early this fall for the Restless reviews of the good faith debates. Now, Pastor Michael, these debates, if they're going to be anything, they're going to be done in good faith.
So anything that has to say good faith debates, my just automatic assumption is that it will neither be done in good faith nor be really a debate. That's how I feel about this going in. It just seems like you're really putting it on heavy.
It does indeed feel like you might be putting it on heavy. It's like from Arrested Development, if you're a fan of that show, where the alliance of magicians hold up their sign that say, "We demand to be taken seriously," right? Like they want you to know how serious they are.
Meme it. Somebody meme that one. That we need that.
We demand to be taken in good faith. And so, Pastor Michael, as we wade our way into this, we are going to play yay, nay, or nuance with all the questions that they propose to debate in these great debates. I think all of which, but the last one, as we record this, has now been posted. And so very exciting. And we want to discuss these gay, nay, or nuance. And what you are agreeing to is this is a good faith debate question for evangelicals. Secondarily, the real subtext I think we want to talk through as we work through these questions is, why is TGC doing this now? Why is TGC covering these substantial, as they describe them, debates at this point? And so the question, right? So let's lay out a few parameters, I guess, right? For the question to be done in good faith, it is a real question we can disagree over and discuss. And 2, I think it is actually something that would be helpful, right? It has to helpfully address things as far as they go. And so after we go through all the questions, we can discuss why we think TGC is doing this. Now, I'm going to read their 1-paragraph introduction as to why they're doing this before we go. We can comment on that before we begin going through these various questions. So, and we might already begin talking about why they're doing this series. But so this is their kind of 1-paragraph description of the good faith debates. When we keep the gospel central, there's a good start. We can disagree on lesser but still important matters in good faith. In the good faith debates, we hope to model this, showing that it is possible for 2 Christians united around the gospel to engage in charitable conversation, even amid substantive disagreement. Pastor Michael, do you have any thoughts about this? Their opening description of what they're aiming to do with the good faith debates.
So, seems obviously this is playing around the fact that the Gospel Coalition has often set itself up as like they're taking the center. That was, the goal from the beginning of both Keller and Carson. They wanted to kind of reclaim the center of evangelicalism. And so as the center, as those trying to hold everybody together, apparently, they are trying to show, or so they say, what it would be like to disagree, but disagree well, and still be able to come to the table together. There is something almost noble about it, right? Like if I thought that it would actually be done in good faith, there would then be part of me that thinks, okay, I like the idea in a very tribalized, partisan time that you want to like, hey, we're going to at least have real conversations about this. I think that I like that as a concept, as an idea. I have zero hope that is what this will be.
And why do you have zero hope of that? Maybe that's an important question to answer.
Well, so we've just seen time and time again, basically a lack of desire to do that, it seems, from the Gospel Coalition in the past. Even this past week, dealing with things like gun control and equating things like, wanting to keep the Second Amendment to being pro-abortion, and lumping those two things together from the editor of the Gospel Coalition. Right? When you have these sorts of people at the helm of your organization and often writing for your organization, it just becomes clear that like I don't think you understand where the fault line actually is and where we actually disagree. And so that's why, I mean, I don't believe that you're willing to have an actual long form, in-depth, real conversation. You are willing to do a debate that is maybe not scripted, but you edit it. You're going to make it look a certain way. You're going to keep the time limit down. If it got too spicy, my guess is you wouldn't play it. You would cut those things out. You would not have them.
Yeah. Now I will say, since these have been released, we did look at the time length of two of these another night. And man, guys, I'm still a new Calvinist deep down. I still am like, I think this is they're really going to have a full debate. Like they are going to do a full long crossfire here. Like I'm still cage staging with James White. I'm like, everybody loves 2.5 hour debate. Everyone would do those given the chance. And I'm like, oh wait, they're 42 minutes long. Oh,
you can't even start to have a conversation about these topics in 40 minutes. What are you doing?
Yeah, here is all right. We're before we get into these, and we can say if we think we're wrong about this, because they're so well out there. They're what these debates are, and we're going to go through them title by title. But let's just put our cards on the table of why I think they're doing this. So I think number one, it's because the coalition, the new Calvinist movement, has been breaking down over these issues.
Absolutely, it's splintering all over the place.
And their answer, and the Gospel Coalition's answer is, and you can't do that. You shouldn't be allowed to break it down over these issues. And we're going to find out, maybe that's a secondary question. We can ask this in the yay, nay, or nuance. Is this an issue that is actually worth potentially breaking down these issues over? Now, part of the problem of this is actually when this is, I think, also somewhat part of the Gospel Coalition's mission creep over time. Again, there were only so many articles they could write on justification by faith and life as a pastor, and have D.A. Carson do New Testament studies to continue the content train.
Yeah, at some point you have to get Charlie Self, who is absolutely a real person.
He's very real.
There's no doubt in our minds about this.
Man, I just saw a recent one. Can you ask your employer for health insurance? Okay. Not a robot. This is a
Gospel Coalition article.
This is a Gospel Coalition article. Definitely a real person.
It was not written by a bot by any means.
That didn't just take common terms like job and healthcare and can a Christian and find a way to put that sentence together as basically as it possibly could.
Next article that comes out, is it acceptable for Christian websites to use artificial intelligence to write articles?
Now here's a question, and if there's a person, obviously people basically view us as, and it's fine that we would be, that potentially Pastor Michael and I would be too hard right in the mind of the Gospel Coalition to be able to engage in a good faith debate. Our perspectives would be so outrageous that we may not be allowed to engage in a good faith debate.
Yeah, and if it's in the mind of the Gospel Coalition, that's probably true.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about. But the problem when I think about this, and this is why I'm bringing this up, because I'm admitting a possible bias. I don't remember bringing up any of these conversations. Like we're going to talk about guns and whatever, and as we go down these lists, and I'm not even really going to share my views a lot. We might do that obviously when we review these debates. We might do, what would our good faith, what kind of spicy good faith debate kind of thing would we want to bring to these subjects? Because I think that would actually be fun. What would be a actually spicy Christian proposition to it? And it could just be, the Christian church really doesn't have much to say about this. And I don't know that they will, because a lot of these are, they touch on directly Christian ethics and worldview. Now, the issue is that none of the people, like, it was no one on the, we'll say, the con side of these things that was saying Christians need to be about gun control. Christians, like, we have to, whatever is happening out there with racial reconciliation, we have to put a stop to that. We need to redefine evangelical. Maybe that one almost close, but right. I was not asking anyone these questions. And so it's hard for me to understand, so these calls for unity feel fairly one-sided, right?
Yeah. So you came in and you started to say, hey, if you don't agree with me on these things, that makes you a bad Christian. You're not following the scripture. There's all of these problems with you. You are defending those who own slaves. You are you're defending violence in the name of the scripture. Like, you're pushing all of these ideas. You came in here, started yelling all these things, started writing articles about all of these things. And now when I'm like, well, wait a minute, I don't think that's quite true. You're like, okay, well, that's, now obviously you're bringing this up. So now I have to come in and I have to, make it easy on everybody by giving a good faith debate.
Yeah. I can't believe you value unity so little.
Right.
Well, no, I enjoyed everything we were talking about, learning about justification and the 5 solas. I love all the historical theology that I've been learning.
I thought we were together on this. Come on.
Oh, well, okay. And this is, I think, the issue. And so I think, again, this is the goal, to hold together this coalition and hold themselves kind of as the people who get to guide this conversation. Right.
Yeah. Staying as they are the gatekeepers to who's going to be allowed, like what kind of a view and how, even more so than like who is going to get to say what views are acceptable. I think maybe even more so, how exactly are we allowed to conduct these conversations? Right. I think that's way more, because my issue is not even with like, hey, if the Gospel Coalition wants to have people come and talk about gun control or something like that, I think there might be a place for it. We give them a hard time, and I like to make fun of them for, branching off of all of the actual gospel things. But if they want to do that, it's like, that doesn't bother me that much. It's not that big of a deal to me. However, what it seems to be is it's that same like big Eva, we've got to protect each other. Like, nobody can lobby harsh criticism against another. It all has to be done as if we can say upfront, guaranteed, like we're all in this together. But what if we find something where we're not?
Right.
It seems like that's not an option.
Yes. That is, again, part of the problem here is that, just so you know, like, even if you disagree on these things at the end, you have to totally accept them. Right.
Like that might not be true.
Why do I have to grant that going in? Yeah. There's no reason I should have to grant that going into a debate. Yeah. We are debating.
And hey, listen, like, is it true that we're in a time that is so divisive that we might be breaking fellowship and drawing hard lines where we shouldn't be? I think that's very possible. Very possible. I also think we're in a time when there are many people who are trying to like fuzz up the lines enough where it's like, hey, there's not really any lines. Church discipline doesn't matter. Like, we can all kind of get along. There's just an assumption that like the stuff that happens over and over again in the New Testament, when Paul warns the Ephesian elders that some from among you are
Right.
going to rise up and start teaching something that's false, as if that's not a possibility at all.
Right.
And we're not even saying that is. Like, in these debates, are some of these people in that category? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, but it does seem like we're saying from the outset that is not a possibility. And if you say that, then you're outside of the conversation. You're not allowed in.
So what you just said are two very important and brilliant things. One, sorry, there you go, brilliant. Wow, I don't use that word a lot.
Thank
but
you.
Here's one of the reasons it's so important is this is the precise reason you debate something, is to find out if that person is saying something that should be thrown outside.
Yep.
That is the precise value a debate provides. We learn, hey, we're not that far apart. Hey, we learn, maybe these are valid. We learn, oh no, you're Arius. Get Santa Claus in here.
Right.
We need to slap you around a little bit, Or the other thing is yeah, no, like it's actually never will you draw, you can't draw a line. No, it's if you say, well, you can't draw a line on these things. So that means if I do draw a line on any of these things, oh, I'm out, right? Like, oh, that's where you chose to draw the line and you're trying to get the right to do so.
Yep. I hope at the end of these debates, they prove us wrong by like choosing one of the people to basically say, yeah, like there's one winner. And then for the loser, somebody comes out dressed as Santa Claus and just socks them.
Who would like Restless to begin hosting our own debates? We would call them the Restless high stakes debates.
That's right. Restless debates. Yeah. Oh man. Elephant Room 3.0.
Yep.
Except this time, people actually get like voted off in some way where they have to leave.
If you have the affect, and also just if you have the affect, size, and mannerisms of Santa Claus, we'd love to have you on the show and potentially book you for a series of debates.
We've got a business idea we want to run past you.
I think it'd be huge. Well, I think we've kind of covered kind of why we think they're doing this, but so let's walk through the debate questions, and we can yay, nay, or nuance these questions. And I will note all of these debates, obviously they've spent a long time producing these. None of these are related to current events that have occurred in this country over the last month. And it would be easy to think they were, because some of them are kind of literally being ripped off, feel like they're being ripped off the headlines, just so you know.
Yeah.
So if we can give them any compliment, they are choosing issues that are so on the nose of what people are discussing, right? That they know what is being talked about. They know where the discourse is in culture, right? So debate number one, yay, nay, or nuance. Can this be a good faith debate, Pastor Michael? How should Christians think about gun control and the right to bear arms?
I'm gonna go with yay. I mean, as a question. Well, I guess so. As a debate, this is not a debate topic, right? Like they call it a good faith debate. Right. This is a discussion, right? Hey, let's talk through this question. So maybe I have to say nay, because as a debate, there's no proposition. Correct. Right? For a real debate, you would need a proposition and one to take the positive and one to take the negative. And so I guess I'm not clear what the proposition itself is going to be. Maybe they won't have one.
And it is interesting that I do think later the issues, the propositions actually are more obviously stated in at least the question itself. And so I think that those will come closer. But I actually do think, and spoiler alert, everyone, I am not going to be a yay on a lot of these questions. I do think this one is general enough that we could say yay to this. Now, I do think there are some potential problems around it, because I actually think, right, if you wanted me to discuss this, if I want to discuss this as a Christian, right, when we discuss things as Christians, this is where I feel like we're in a bit of a mission creep. Who at the Gospel Coalition knows anything about guns? Right?
Yep, right.
Or there's literally 1,000 questions you have to be able to cogently discuss to answer this in a we should want more gun control, we should want all kinds of things. I think, again, the question like that I would want to talk about is, is there the question that the church might have a role in saying is, does the Christian have the right and responsibility to self-defense? Does the Christian have the right and responsibility to maybe some kind of greater public good? Or, like those are the kinds of questions that I actually think that would be potentially a more relevant thing for the church to help a Christian understand.
Yeah.
From which they can reason out these other things. But I do think, as far as it goes, this one is a yay. This was done by Bob Thune and Andrew Wilson. Oh, if anyone who was involved in making these, none of these people will ever speak to us. You want to come talk to us about what it was like to make your good faith debate? We would be certainly
love the behind the scenes look.
Yeah. So debate number 2, is woke church a stepping stone to theological compromise? Pastor Michael.
Yes. We're doing yay, nay, or nuance.
Can this be a good faith debate?
Sorry, I forgot what we were doing.
You forgot you were just answering.
Yeah. I thought you were asking me a question. Oh man. So is woke church? So
what a weird way to put that.
Woke church is in quotes. Is this like specifically the book Woke Church? Because there's a book, right? Isn't this Gold Hallelujah guy?
Eric Mason's book.
Yep.
Eric Mason's book with the foreword written by Ligon Duncan.
Ligon Duncan, well known in the PCA conservative circles. Interesting choice.
Yep.
Interesting choice.
So I'm going to say that this is probably not a debate regarding Gold Hallelujah, Eric Mason's book. But
what if they did a whole debate just about his book? That'd be hilarious. Oh, that would
be a very appropriate debate. Like debating the contents of a book would be very appropriate. But I think this is the movement that
the idea, whatever the woke church is, whatever
So do you think this is a good faith question? Yay, nay, or nuance?
I guess I'm going to say nay. Okay. I don't know quite how to answer these just with so limited amount, but in part simply because we're still dealing with like a 40-minute so-called debate.
Sure.
And like we could sit here and talk about what even the woke church is. Like, what are you talking about, right? Like, how do you even define this?
How many of the 40 minutes are spent answering that question?
Yeah, right. And
20, half of it.
Yeah, and when you can't do that, how much are you talking past each other? Which is obviously a major problem right now. Like, there's a lot of talking past each other, and a lot of people who like, nope, I get it, I get what you're saying, and I really think you're wrong. And it's like, well, no, I think you just misunderstand. Nope, I don't misunderstand. I'm pretty positive I know what you mean, and you're just wrong. So that's I cannot imagine the Gospel Coalition covering this in a way that actually like spans the actual disagreement.
And so you're making predictions about the future, which
I shouldn't make predictions.
But here's why I'm a nay, because again, this is where I think we begin to see these suckers loading the question.
Oh, I see it already. Yeah,
the woke church is not a stepping stone to compromise. The woke church is compromise.
Yes,
the end.
Right.
That's the debate. The debate isn't, could this lead us down a path of compromise? The answer is, that is why this is where it feels like we've talked about steering the conversation.
Yep.
The issue isn't that I'm worried that someday you might compromise on an important issue. My answer is you are doing that right now. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see that, and we're gonna see it more as we continue these topics.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, even more bluntly. But I think you're right, and I think this is what I want to be watching for, even when we watch these debates, is how is this shifting the window of like what is acceptable, what is not? How is it pushing it to say, oh, there are certain things that are out that we might say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Whereas there are many things that are in that we'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not even like quite what the debate was about. But now you're just talking about these things as if they are acceptable. You can think of a lot of different, so woke church, so all of a sudden you're quoting certain authors or certain like philosophical traditions as if they're just acceptable topics. and that's just passed over, well, then we might, start to see, okay, this is shifting that conversation in the direction of something that we would say is problematic.
Yep. All right. Debate number 3.
Here we go.
Here's a mouthful of a question. Should the pro-life movement be holistically womb to tomb or narrowly womb focused? Pastor Michael, yay, nay, or nuance? This is a question setting up a good faith debate.
Yeah. So nay on the good faith again. So the contrast is holistic or narrow. The framing of that is like, it's shockingly like, again, on its face, like, yep, we know which one we like better.
Right
away.
Yeah. So I'm a nay here too. This is a pretty outrageous example because, right, this is the of again, what we're debating is, they're like, well, you don't believe in all of these health, like, again, it's denying what the term pro-life exists to do. And I will actually say pro-life advocates actually have a lot to say about end-of-life care. They've historically always opposed euthanasia, right? It's been
adoption, adoption, all of these other issues that come up. Yep.
That they are actually very involved in a number of issues. But what they are denying is, like, they're saying there are certain actions that are evil, we must stop. And right, so euthanasia, right, they believe that's a form of murder, even, or suicide, right, murder or assisted suicide, right? We literally call it assisted suicide at this point. So I was trying to come up with a description. I was like, oh, this is just what people think they're doing now, which is crazy to me. Abortion, these issues. But again, right, that what is being attempted to yoke it to is, the idea that we're literally now using the terms womb to tomb. Like, I guess if I take the logic of the pro-life movement, I don't want anyone to be allowed to murder you at any point in your life.
Yeah. If that's, is that all Karen Swallow Prior means? Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
I also am against murder at all stages of life. Thank you.
Right. And so, obviously this is going to be a debate about social programs and all of these things. And the problem is that the question isn't the best way to help homeless people. The question is, am I allowed to murder homeless people if they're in the way? If I think it would be better for society if they were murdered. And I don't have to believe anything about any other homeless
any other policy, any other,
because I fully admit I could be wrong about everything that would better help them.
It confuses it.
Yes.
And it adds all of these elements in, to the point where if you are not an expert in all of these different things, or think that you're an expert in all of these different things, but like, if you're not, then in a sense, it cuts you out of the conversation, right? It says, okay, well, actually, there's very few who are allowed to speak to this, because there's very few who have done the work on the policies and this healthcare program and this adoption agency and this, prenatal care, whatever it is. Like, there's very few people that have covered all of these bases. Right. And, again, womb to tomb. That's literally the entirety of somebody's life. There's no stopping this, right? There's no stopping this at any point.
And I wonder if one of the arguments is going to be like, hey, people aren't going to believe that we really care about, infants if we don't, support all of these other things, right? Like, and again, it just makes me think of like, dude, why didn't the people in the North care about the poor people in the South when they came through and burnt down their towns to like free the slaves? Like, why do you care a little bit more about you weren't like holistically for freedom. You were just narrowly like, you shouldn't allow race-based slavery. Like, you're a really single issue there, Abe. Come on.
Yeah, these single issue voters.
Yep.
They are.
As we've all learned, everyone at this point is a single issue voter at this point. Yeah. So,
hey, Scott Klusendorf, who's in this debate, he's a great guy. Seems to be anyway. His writing, I've read some of his work on abortion, and he seems to be a pretty solid dude as far
Well,
as I can tell. Although
well,
every time we endorse somebody and say they're a solid dude on here,
we
it
get, like,
turns out that
2
they're
weeks later.
not at all.
Yeah. 2 weeks later, they at least make us say, maybe you didn't want to shout me out.
2 weeks later, they're in a conference with every person that we've ever said on the podcast you shouldn't trust.
So yeah. So yeah, when I saw his name here, I was like, oh, I look forward to hearing what he has to say, even though I do not think this in any way represents a good faith question. All right. Debate number 4. What is the best approach for the church to address racial injustice? Pastor Michael.
I'm just to go with my same kind of flow from question number 1. I'll say nay, although I'm kind of a yay. I'm not nuanced. I'm not taking nuance. Just because it's not a, so what's the best approach? There's no proposition. When you say, should this be, right? You've got a proposition there.
Right.
Whereas what is the best approach? This is maybe my problem with all of these so far. This is so broad that we're talking about the questions and going to take 40 minutes to do it. And you're going to like have the actual debate in 40 minutes. Like this is not going to go anywhere. And so what's the best approach for the church to address racial injustice? There's like, that is such a large question. That's such a giant question. It's the same as saying like, shouldn't we be womb to tomb pro-life? Like you're literally just talking about everything
that could ever happen to a person.
Yeah. Like how do you even start with something so general without an exact proposition of, hey, is this okay? Is this policy? Is this thing that the Gospel Coalition has been writing about and people have been upset about? Is this acceptable? Things like that. Hey, remember like that reparations book? Is this something we should be doing? That'd be an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Talk about reparations. Like, should we be giving reparations? That's an actual proposition. This is something we can actually like discuss.
And it is concrete. So I'm actually a nay on this one, even though I was a yay on the first one, because the issue I have is, once again, this question, I believe, assumes what is an actual topic of debate. What is the best approach for the church to address racial injustice? This is not, I'm not denying the existence of racism or people being obviously historically, right? Obviously, that's, this is why actually potentially your example of the reparations debate would have been better and more interesting. But one of the realms of debate today is actually what constitutes racial injustice.
Yeah.
Because if we agree that, like, this is why it's such a big deal, is if we actually assume there is injustice, for example, like with the abortion one, which the Gospel Coalition has always been very pro-life, very anti-abortion. Now, there are obviously some radical people that only want one kind of solution, there's only one thing we can do about this, right? There are some people who are on a fringe of abolitionism, which if they ever hear a word that I just said, they will flood me with angry emails and messages. But there are people who are on a far fringe that only will accept one solution. But actually, if we agree there is a thing is an injustice, generally the discussion of what we do about it isn't a debate. It's we're going to do something about it.
Yeah,
right?
it's like what is the best approach? But we're not debating at this point. We're heading in the same direction.
Yeah,
we're in agreement. Let's get rid of this thing. You want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. Let's just go do it.
Right. And so this is a similar, right? This is a similar question, because this question, if we're just being honest, is talking about are the things that critical theory is pointing out racial injustice, and what should we do about it? There's like 2 layers to this.
Yeah.
And potentially what the church's, and obviously it's what the church's role is, right? And
yeah, so, with a lot of this, like, I mean, this is, like you said at the beginning, this is one of those kind of overarching questions that is just assumed that all of these are things that the church should be involved in.
Right.
And that, like, we don't doubt Christians should be involved in all of these things in some way or another. However, what is the actual role for the institutional church? That's a totally different question.
Right. And so So that is why I am a nay to this one, because I think that it's already, again, it's this example of them loading the answer. And maybe they believe, this is me sincerely taking them as wanting to have, maybe they sincerely believe that we actually all agree on these underlying issues. And if they believe that, this is why they don't see it. This is why the Gospel Coalition doesn't get it. They don't actually get I'm sort of taking back where I'm like, yeah, hey man, they kind of have nailed the things people are talking about, but they don't get where the disagreement is, if this is the case. Okay, and this number 5 is a really strange one.
It does not seem to. I get how it fits. I do get it, but it does seem when you first read it like, whoa, that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, you're gonna have to help me, because all of these are ones where it's like, dude, we're going full knives out on Twitter over most of these things. This one is like, oh, okay.
It's little more ambiguous, but I'll tell you what it's all about.
Great. So, yay, nay, or nuance. This is a good faith question for debate. Should we insist on a theological and historical definition of evangelical if many self-described evangelicals see it primarily as a political identity?
So I'm going to say nay. That's where I'm going to jump in on this one, because of how they say, if you just stop, should we insist on a theological and historical definition of evangelical? That would be like, I actually think that there could be interesting discussion on this. We've had this discussion on the podcast. Yep. We've talked about this. But then they add, if many self-described evangelicals see it primarily as a political identity. I don't even know how you can tell if that's true. Like, I don't even know where you start with that kind of a thing, right? Like, that's just so strange. But I'll tell you why.
It's going to be a really nerdy debate here's the quantitative survey study I have done to
all these statistics. Like, it's just a weird, I don't think you can, right? Basically is what I'm saying. But the reason they're doing this, by the way, is, of course, like everything and everyone that exists currently, this is about Trump. This is all about Trump. It's because evangelicals, by and large, voted for Trump. And so people were scrambling to say, man, what does evangelical mean if a bunch of them voted for Trump? Because I have considered myself an evangelical, and I read the Gospel Coalition, and I maybe write for or edit the Gospel Coalition. And I thought that it was a sin to vote for Trump. And so, like, how can this be? Like, how can there be evangelicals that would do this overwhelmingly? This
is so right, because here are the two things that I would like to say. This is why I'm an A. I don't know any evangelical who describes themselves as an evangelical as a primarily political identity.
As political, I've never heard of that in my life, by the way. Even those who they like, when it's used as a political designation, which it is in some ways, it's not used that way because people themselves have used that designation meaning something political by it. You know what I mean? Like, they don't, like, that's not, as far as I can tell, a thing that is. That doesn't exist. But if you are in kind of ivory tower, or like, in an urban center, typical Democrat liberal, you watch CNN, and so you model your debate series off of them. You like, if you just read the New York Times, I actually think that this is something you would maybe think,
right?
Like, this is, people use this just as a political identity.
This was getting to the second point, because here's actually what they wanted to title this debate. Should we insist on a theological and historical definition of evangelical, even if the mainstream media see it primarily as a political identity? That is what this debate actually wanted to be about, which could actually, as I said that jokingly, and then I realized, no, that's actually kind of an interesting debate.
Because we've had this conversation.
If the mainstream American discourse is saying evangelical means go Bama, I vote Trump, do we need to let it go? Like, does it no longer help anyone know anything about my church?
this is a conversation that we've had, that we've talked about, that, you know, people have been talking about for a long time. And it wasn't even just like Trump brought this up, although he helped to exacerbate it, as he did many things. The great exacerbator. He made us talk about it, maybe. But this is just a conversation we've had of, should I call myself an evangelical? There are people that I've talked to that I'm like, I guess you could call me an ex-evangelical. There are people I've talked to who I'm like, I don't think that I could really call myself an evangelical. And there are people who I talk to who I'm like, yeah, I'm an evangelical, because it means very different things. We use it as this weird word that means a lot of things. So I actually think that this could be an interesting conversation, and Andrew Walker may be a great guy to have that conversation. I don't know the other guy at all. Sorry, Ryan Burge. I do not know you. I don't know if you'll be great, but I have high hopes.
But here's the problem. This is like, it's the final thing, and it's the other thing. TGC, if you are listening, I've come on a mission of love. This is why everyone is so mad at you, because many self-described evangelicals primarily see it as a political identity. Why is it their fault? Why did you have to load into this question? Man, if you guys wouldn't have
those stupid Rube evangelicals, they ruined it for us. Now all of my friends, when I go out to the fancy restaurants, they think I'm one of you. They think I voted for Trump.
Now I have to figure out if I need to insist on a historical and theological definition of this word.
When I go to my book club with Russell Moore and Francis Collins, they don't even know what to think of me anymore.
Right. Yeah. They wonder if I'm going to sing along with them in their song they sing. And so Pastor Michael, I think I went 1 for 4 on a yay. You went 2 for 3.
Yeah, I went kind of, I don't know. I had 2 that were kind of yay nays, and I don't want to call them nuance, but I guess I could have to call 2 of them nuance. But 2 out of 5, there's still 3 out of 5. That's a majority nay. So I don't think I get to be called nuance for this episode.
So we will look forward to listening to these episodes. And I think we do need more debate today.
Yeah. And maybe debate. I'm not sure that debates are always helpful. And especially in today's culture, I actually think that debates might not be helpful. What I actually want to see is not a debate of like a classic debate, like a typical, go back to some of the James White debates that we just ate up all the time. And I still watch from time to time. Like this really well-structured debate where, like, if you are a logical person, you could sit down and parse out where the dividing lines actually are. I don't know that there are many people capable of doing that right now. And maybe I'm just becoming cynical, but I'm not sure that's true. However, what I would like to see is a Joe Rogan podcast style where you sit down with somebody and you have 3 hours of back and forth, 3 hours of asking questions, kind of go on some rabbit trails and come back. But you're actually able to get to some substance of what's going on and where the differences are. But I'm basically convinced that there are very few people willing to do that in these higher echelons of the Gospel Coalition or whatever other big Eva machine there is. And it would take a lot. I know that it would be difficult. And the reality is it will open you up. This is why I don't think they'll do it. And this is why I think they like 40-minute debates, just like all politicians love the 30 and 40-minute debates that they do, because you can't get anywhere. All you have to do is give your soundbite, and that's it, right? You give your soundbite and it's over. And you can look good. You know that there's some people that aren't going to like it no matter what, but you'll look good to the people you're trying to impress, but you don't actually get to substance at any point. And so that's ultimately, I'm a nay on all the debates, because I don't think you can do it this way. I think this format, the medium itself is not conducive to actually getting to the substance of why there's disagreement and how we can get along, if we can, for one. But if we can get along, even over these differences, how exactly we're going to move forward doing that. I don't think that you can get anywhere like that in this medium.
I think that brings up such an interesting point, because I obviously agree with you on how, like the fact that like debate, right. I'm sure James White rolls in his, I guess I was going to say grave. He's still with us, everyone. I'm sure he cringes so hard on his bike every time anything in our political sphere is called a debate, right? Because he, right, so believes in the value of these long structured these debates. But I think it is such an interesting point of you saying that actually I'm wondering if that medium actually doesn't make sense for what the goal is in our current culture. Like, is that the actual medium by which these things can come out, and is it better to do it in these kind of these Joe Rogan, these type kind of settings? And I actually think you might be right. It's given me a lot to think about. And I think really when it comes down to it, the reason I often think about this as I enjoy engaging with people who disagree with me on various things. I think that obviously there can be a love for contentious things. Obviously, that's not what the Gospel Coalition loves. They want us to all just say, we all think the same thing, so we're all good here. But I think there is I always think of it because it is one of the oldest commentaries that was ever written on the Westminster Confession of Faith. And it's called The Truth's Victory Over Error. It's by the Presbyterian David Dixon, or The True Principles of the Christian Religion Stated and Defended Against All Heresies. And then obviously it's a Puritan title. So he lists every heresy that he contends against. And he does it as a commentary. And so I just so often think that there's actually a healthy desire that I just want to see the truth vindicated in these settings. And so that's my goal, right? So my goal isn't to like, I have done the most academic, the best presentation. But right, what you're saying is perhaps in our time, in the venues that we have, these long form interviews are, for what we are able to do in our day, are the best ways to see truth's victory over error. And that's what I want. And that's what I wish this could be about. Because if this could be about the truth's victory over error, not all errors are equal, right? The helpfulness or not helpfulness of the term evangelical is not as big of an issue as one of the 10 commandments to not murder. But there still can be truth vindicated, because ultimately this is a goal of vindicating Jesus, vindicating what he said at an ultimate level. And again, not every debate, not every disagreement is on these ultimate issues. But that is, I think, the desire that people have, that these things get at. Thank you for listening to our very sincere and edifying discussion of the good faith debates.
Yeah, we did them in good faith. We did them in good faith.
That's right.
And I give us a yay. I give us a yay on the good faith discussion on the good faith debates.
Pastor Michael, what should people do if they want to interact with us more, or if they want to support the podcast?
Hey, there's so much that you can do. You can go to the restlesspodcast.com and you can check out the store and buy some awesome merch with Restless logo on it, or many other things. You can go to
patreon.com/the Restless Podcast.
And there you can join us, and even on the lowest levels, you get access to the Telegram group where we discuss things all day. This kind of things, we'll throw it out to the group and we'll just discuss these things all day, pretty much every day.
In good faith.
In good faith, always. And if you have any, critiques of what we've just said, you keep those to yourself.